So Sergey said we have to go fast, and luckily for me, he also prepared some of the stuff that I want to talk about. So the slides are on my website, phide.com/progressive. So there's slides and code, so you don't have to take notes. So what is the motivation behind this talk? So last week, there were some tweets around, oh, how does progressive rendering JPEGs affect the core web vitals and stuff? And somebody said, well, I thought progressive JPEGs are bigger, and anyway, no, there was this other study. So people are a little bit confused. And I was able to dig out this old study on a blog that doesn't exist anymore. But thanks to the web archive, I was able to recover it. So I was thinking, what a better way to spend a weekend than just doing another study, just repeating the old stuff that everybody has forgotten about. And I just wanted to show you the steps that I took, so hopefully encourage more people to do more studies responsibly, because I have a problem with a lot of the website, the performance studies out there. So this is me. Yeah, Sergey already said everything. Nice. I joined Catchpoint a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, to work on web page test. And let's talk about performance studies. You know, there's some magic numbers around. One of my favorites is this one from around 2005, when we were trying to convince our managers to let us work on performance because we like it, but we didn't have any business metrics to correlate. So this magic number came up. If you improve your site by 100 milliseconds, suddenly you're going to make 1% more money. And everybody was excited. Yes, this is 2005, and websites took about a week to load, or maybe a couple of 10, 20 seconds. So imagine if you only improve for 100 milliseconds, and then you'll be rich and everybody will be happy. So at one conference, I spoke to a person who works at this company, said, yo, this is really great research. Tell me more about it. Give me some data. And he was saying, I was trying to find, I looked everywhere. I asked everybody in the company. Nobody knows about this thing. I want to learn it for myself, he said, because if I show it to my senior manager, then I'll be free to do all the performance work I want. But no, so yeah, magic number that keeps circulating to this day. Another one, but another big company. And on mobile, no less, people just wait 1 second for the page to load. And if it doesn't, bad things happen. For every half a second, you lose like non-trivial amount of conversion, any business metric. So again, I complained on Twitter, not complain, I asked because I want to see what are these websites that load under a second in mobile. I want to learn and how the study was done, did they delay them afterwards, and what happened. So again, somebody from the company replied that he asked those questions and no data. Last one, recently I've been seeing around more designer-related blogs and articles. Like the UI must respond in some tiny millisecond because otherwise bad things will happen. And for this one, I was able to dig out the source, and it was done somewhere in the 70s. And the research was when you type something in the terminal, if you don't see the letter immediately, whatever you type, you're upset. But that's completely different interaction than now just open a dialog or make a fetch request. So not really relevant to the web anymore. So yeah, that's my problem, that poorly done or poorly documented studies are a disservice to our community, because you see something, oh, somebody did this, and then now they're rich, and then you convince your bosses, let me invest some time, and you do it, and nothing happens, and then now you look like, I don't know. So yeah, just I wanted to encourage more critical reading. And if there's a study, but there's no data, there's no methodology, there's no sample size, just don't bother with it. People's interviews, yeah, that was one of the previous studies, was they were asking people, and non-trivial amount said, if the page doesn't load in 1 second, I'm gone. Which is crazy because people have really bad perception of time, and 1 second is really nothing. So nobody leaves a mobile site after 1 second. But so if the research involves asking people how they feel about something related to timing, that's probably wrong. So yeah, so Gay mentioned WPO stats curated by people who are not easily swayed by magic numbers. It's more quality research, but I encourage just to use it for inspiration. And again, don't trust it blindly. Use it as a starting point to start your own. And back to the study in question. This is the website recovered from the non-existing Yahoo blog. So let's talk about progressive images, progressive JPEGs. So there's two types of JPEGs. One baseline that render top to bottom is more data arrived, and the other one is progressive, which shows you a low quality image. As more data arrives, then it becomes sharper. So this is how old the study is. These are my kids, and this one is in college now. Another illustration of baseline loading. You have to wait for the whole thing before you read the joke, and we don't do that. So there's a really nice video showing a rendering of side by side of baseline on the left and progressive on the right. So at this point, let's stop here. I mean, you pretty much know what's happening here, right? There's a bicycle, there's some food. You maybe don't know what that is, but it's pretty clear. And here, I don't know, you know what time it is, more or less. And while on the left, we keep reinventing the wheel, so to speak. On the right side, now we know that, well, I can recognize wine and even, yeah, that's lobster, that's snails, escargot. And you can even kind of maybe read the newspaper if you know French. Yeah, while the other one keeps loading. And you don't even know half of the story here. All right. It's a little painful, but I want to make a point. And actually, the first one is done rendering a little bit earlier, and the progressive one. I was also like, this is done. The other one is still loading, waiting for the cherries on the bottom. All right. So some people don't agree that progressive is better. And one of the reasons I've heard is that when you see a lower quality image, you think it's done, but it's low quality. So you may say, oh, that side is low quality because their images are not sharp enough. The other one, another interesting study that people did, which actually included monitoring brain activity. And the findings were that progressive images cause more cognitive load because you have to reparse the image several times, which I don't know if it's bad. People are engaged with the site. And the other problem with that study was there's only 10 people that came because it's kind of hard to, to get a lot of people and monitor their brain activities, but very cool story search anyway. Some of you may be wondering why are still talking about JPEGs, what year it is. So there has been development over the years. The few other variants of JPEGs that are fully supported. There is a newer WebP format, which the studies, I don't think they're conclusive that it's better. It's better sometimes, not always. AVIF, the new kid on the block, that's a game changer. But the problem with both of these, AVIF and WebP, is that they are based on video codecs. So they don't support progressive rendering at all because in video, you don't care about progressive rendering. So yeah, my personal opinion is, yeah, if you want to get every single byte in every single case, maybe you have an image service that can deliver the right image to the right browser, but that's too much work. Just sticking with the JPEGs and wait for the new JPEG XL, aka Jaxel, because that's a really big improvement. So until then, JPEG. So in the old study, the goal was our progressively encoded images smaller in file size, and then some other stuff like how quickly it is to encode, and are we doing the best job optimizing images out there. It uses a tool called JPEG Tran, which comes with every Unix, Linux, Mac system. So it's everywhere, we just need to run it. The raw data, so how do you get our raw data to create a study? And this is a quote from my blog, which is a little embarrassing. So I use the image search API to find images that match a number of queries, such as kittens, puppies, and monkeys. I didn't even list all the queries. So repeatability is really important in a study. So yeah, not great. The stuff that I like is that there was over 10,000 images from the real world. So they're representative of what's out there. And the results were, so on the bottom, we have the file size of the original image. And on the y-axis, we have the difference between if you encode it as baseline encoding minus progressive encoding. And we see a trend. So the data is all over the place, but there's a trend. So the bigger the file, the more, the greater the chance that progressive will give you a smaller image. So then I kind of zoomed only on smaller images up to 30K, and we can draw a trend line in Excel and see that it passes more or less around 10K. So the conclusion was, if the files is over 10K, there's a greater chance that it's going to be smaller if you encode it with progressive encoding. And then just running it on all the images, if you just run the baseline JPEG, do the very minimum in optimizing images, there's 9% savings. So we were not doing a great job optimizing the images back then. If you only run progressive, that's even better. And also the baseline encoding takes a little bit, it's quicker. But I mean, all these optimization processes before you ship the, during the build process, so it's offline, it doesn't need to be fast. So what do we do today to start the study? Various options. So there's purpose-created images, usually done to test the encoders, artifacts and whatnot, but problem is it's a small set of images. We can always take the Alexa 1000 sites, or we can just browse the web with a proxy like Fiddler and just look for all the traffic and grab it, or use the browser's built-in DevTools. And the new kit on the back, it's not a new kit, but HTTP archive is another way to just see what's out there. And obviously there's going to be a great talk next time in the next meetup. So just to warm you up, HTTP archive is using a web page test private instance and runs every month about over 5 million URLs on the desktop and over 7 million on the mobile web. And then dumps this data, and then you need to use BigQuery. So that's because it's a paid product, but it has a generous free tier, and might be overwhelming to start with. But Barry Pollard has a great intro. I just follow the steps. Basically, I just look at the photo, didn't really even read the whole thing, and was able to get stuff done. So yeah, just a regular SQL query. In the last run, if there's a JPEG extension, just give me random 20,000 sites, 20,000 URLs, and then you can export this. So this is how it looks like. It's a little bit overwhelming, but yeah, nothing too bad. Schema details, you can see what the content of that table in HTTP archive looks like. And then you write your SQL queries and export the results as a CSV. So at the end, I have a bunch of URLs. So now I have to download them. Because I use wget to get all of these images with a short timeout and no retries, because I don't care about loading all of them. I just need enough for the study. So I split them up into small files, open 10 tabs, started watching a movie, if something falls asleep, kill it, next. So after a while, I had 1.5 gigabytes of 14,000 images. Okay, that's enough. But then it's a jungle out there, so there's a bit of cleanup that needs to be done. First of all, rename everything, so now we have one JPEG to JPEG to JPEG instead of some crazy names. And then use ImageMagic's identify command to basically tell us what the image is like. Log these to a file, run a short node script to tell you which are JPEGs and which are not, and just remove them. Like I said, all this code is on that URL. Yeah, that's what the log looks like, the name of the file, and then there's a file type. So sometimes people will send PNG or even BMP files with the JPEG extension. So we need to get rid of these. More cleanup. And then at the end, I threw away 2.6% of those that I downloaded, which is now I have more empathy for the browsers because they have to deal with all this garbage that's out there. And not only, I mean, 2.6% of useless bytes that you have no use for, fine, but the problem is that it takes your time and takes your code if you're a browser just to deal with what's out there. But yeah, so yeah, I was just curious from the source data how many were already progressive, and turns out that about 30% were. The median of all the stuff that I downloaded was 26K. Some outliers, there was 1x1 spacer. Anybody use GIF spacer images before for layout? Nice. People still do it with JPEGs apparently. And there's of course somebody sending 12 megabytes of high quality giant JPEG image, but yeah, gotta be sharp. So when talking about optimizing losslessly JPEGs, there are a few strategies. One is just run JPEG tran because it's there. You can use all the defaults plus this copy noun, which removes all the metadata, and use that optimize flag. Then the other option is always use progressive because of this old study that tells you you'll be right 94% of the time. Or even better yet, just try both, see which one's smaller, take it. And now there's a newer most JPEG, which is just a replacement for JPEG tran. Yeah, you just install it and use it instead because it already does everything, has smarter defaults and does all the brute force and stuff. And if you're an overachiever, there's another tool called JPEG Mini you can run after most JPEG is done. So yeah, from here I just spit out a bunch of commands to encode every image with baseline progressive with one encoder, baseline progressive with another encoder, and with the defaults of the most JPEG. So it looks something like this, if you're curious about all the little options and stuff. The first impression, not great. So if I just look at my source images and then with whatever defaults most JPEG had, so there's 11%, 11.5% of area for improvement. So after saying optimize the images for 15 years, the truth is out there, people still not doing it. So that's a little depressing. I thought, I mean, after we talked about optimizing, because it's a lossless optimization, the pixels are exactly the same. Why not do it? It takes nothing, you have the tools. But so we still have evangelizing too. So then, yeah, just a quick script to give me all of these file sizes that I can compare, put them into Excel and draw the thing, which looks more or less like the 2008. So if we zoom closer, then and look only at files under 30K, yeah, the trend line is more or less the same, or about, I would say 8K. So if it's 8K or bigger, chances are, I mean, the data is all over the place, so you can always try both things, but chances are the trend is the bigger, the better it is if it's progressive. And the same thing with files under 25K, because in the original study, I don't know why I picked 30K, random. Maybe that's where most of the data points were. And I tried with 52K, which is double the median from all the files that I had, pretty much the same results. Most JPEG, I thought it was cute to have files under 666, the number of the beast. And so then the line is even lower. So most JPEG does even better job at encoding progressively. Try the same thing just in case, 30K, 52K, still the same thing. So results are similar to the old study, but now this one is out there and it's documented. And it may be wrong because I was just fiddling with Excel a few hours ago. It's not peer reviewed or anything, so take it with a grain of salt. But the data is out there, the methodology is out there, so anybody can repeat it or find the mistakes in my research. So again, same results. Progressive encoding is better, not always, but almost always. And if it's under 8K, the better the chances that progressive will give you a smaller result. So yeah, are we following the easiest web performance best practice? The easiest is lossless optimization of images. Same image, just don't put extra bytes out there. And if we do follow the opportunities that I mentioned, different strategies, if you only do baseline, savings. If you only do progressive, savings. If you do both, better. If you run JPEG, most JPEG, the easiest, even better. And then the JPEG Mini is just a little something on the top. So I was curious then, if the original source data had 30% progressive images, then most JPEG, after most JPEG is done, is more like 97. So yeah, easy to do, superior format, lovely. Yeah, let's just run it because I mean, there's data out there, there's website out there that don't. So yeah, I just want to encourage everybody just to do more studies. We need diversity. We don't need just one or two companies to come from the mountain and say, no, you do it this way. No, we need smaller companies, people with different problems to do their research and share it with the community so we all learn. And again, if you see a study that says, oh, that looks promising, Ask yourself, does it apply to you? Because there's all kinds of e-commerce, search engines, all kinds of sites. It may or may not apply. And to prepare you for the next talk, one idea is to run the new web page test experiments. If you see something that says, hey, you should preload your hero images, and then you say, okay, will that help in my case? Run a web page test experiment and find out for yourself. Yeah, if you're curious about more things, web images, two of my favorite people to follow. Cornel is the guy who wrote Image Optim for a desktop app for Mac. So they know their stuff. And yeah, thank you very much. I'm done.
I haven't heard of jpeg itself, so
Oh, well, yeah, it can do a ton. First of all, it's modern, fast. It has supports transparency. The file size is ridiculously small compared to things. It can recompress old jpegs, where the other ones they have to render it. And this one can be the data. And it's already supported behind flags in Chrome and Firefox. So the future is right out there. Yeah, that's the URL again, php.com/progressive if you want to look at the data and the code and tell me what I did wrong, please.
Okay, thank you, Stoyan.
Sure, thank you.